Hi, good morning and good afternoon. My name is Calren. I'm a volunteer with the NANOG Program Committee, and we are very excited to have you joining us today. We have a special guest, Nick Plunkett from CENIC, and we get to have a fireside chat with Nick and find out more about what CENIC is, and also about his career and education and involvement in the tech community and at NANOG. So Nick, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Nick Plunkett. I currently work at CENIC. I'm an Internet Services Interconnection Engineer there, which is a lengthy job title, but I'm basically a peering coordinator for CENIC and the Calren network that CENIC runs. I've been involved in NANOG for a few years now, and I'm very excited to present here and answer questions.
Excellent, thanks. So can you start by trying to explain or give us a little bit of background as to what CENIC is?
Yeah, definitely. I've got some slides on CENIC, so let me bring those up here. So CENIC is, I'm just going to go off of what we have on the slides here. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and our mission is to advance education and research by providing this world-class network called Calren. And we connect in all these different associates schools. We call them associates. We connect up the K-12 system, the community colleges, the CSU system, some kind of one-off private universities like Stanford, Caltech, USC, the UC system, the public libraries, and a few other one-offs that we do as well. Around 20 million people use this network every day. We have over 8,000 miles of optical fiber that we run across the state of California in that network that's called Calren that CENIC operates. We have members in all of the counties of California, and they connect either by dark fiber that we light or from leased circuits. We have over 12,000 sites, and we're, again, a nonprofit that's chartered and governed by our members that use the network. And we've been around for over 20 years now, and it's all research and education and all of the university systems there. There's another view of our network here. You can see we extend a little bit out past California, so we're kind of stretching out there and expanding our horizons, building out infrastructure for all the schools and university systems to utilize from kind of almost across the country, but very centralized to California there. We also operate Pacific Wave, which is an international peering exchange across both the US and the Pacific. And we connect in a bunch of the different Pacific universities in there, and there's a lot of research collaboration that happens there. That's another thing that CENIC supports. And that's kind of an overview of what CENIC is.
That's great. A couple of questions. I noticed on your slides that there was a reference to Calren versus CENIC.
Yeah, I'll explain that a little bit. So CENIC is the company and Calren is the network. So CENIC, the company, operates Calren, the network, across the state of California.
Okay, so Calren's like the physical network with the nodes and
exactly
cabling and network infrastructure and that type of thing. Okay.
Yeah. Calren's the network from layer 1 all the way to layer 3. We have optical fiber all across the state. We light it ourselves with DWDM equipment, and then we run routers and switches on top of that dark fiber across the state.
Okay, cool. Now with CENIC and Calren, is CENIC being the organization, you said it was sort of owned and operated by its members. So is there like a committee of all of these universities and colleges that come together and say, hey, today we want to upgrade the network? Or how does that work from an organizational standpoint?
Yeah, definitely. We have a board of directors that's staffed by the people from the member institutions that kind of direct the company as a whole. And then we also have technical advisory committees that can provide input and review onto design decisions that we make as an organization for that Calren network. So we'll typically kick off a project to change the backbone or upgrade it in some way, bring it forward to these TACs and the board of directors, and they'll approve it. And they'll say, yeah, this is the direction we want to go. Or they'll say, oh, let's think about that a little bit and let's talk about that a little bit more.
Okay, cool. So no member has more control or say than any other member.
Right. Yeah. It's a consortium where all of the members come together and collectively kind of have a say in how the network runs.
Okay, Great. Now, why have a network different from, say, the internet? So you talked about Caltech, which is down in Pasadena, California. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't they just have a regular internet connection? What value does Calren have?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. One of the keys that we get from bringing everybody together is that when we have to buy leased circuits or we have to buy dark fiber across the state, is we can use our collective resources of everybody, all of the members together, to negotiate lower pricing, to build bigger infrastructure that's more dedicated to these people than anywhere else would be. So I think the benefits mostly come from everybody being together and buying things all at once. And kind of setting direction for their network that they want to use rather than kind of being beholden to anybody else.
Cool. So, and what type of traffic is carried on the network? Is it both internet traffic or is it also strictly like between the universities?
Yeah, definitely. It started out as highly specialized traffic between the universities. That was kind of one of the original uses of the network, and why people were building it out originally was to have fast interconnection points between the multiple member university systems. But it kind of, as we brought on more members, there had been kind of a shift in mindset of how we operate the network to kind of being more than just connections between the universities, but also enabling access to the general internet. And so that's kind of where I come in, and my position at CENIC is I make sure those connections to the internet that's available to all of our member institutions run as best they can through peering and through kind of the relationships that I've been able to develop at NANOG.
Ah, that's cool. So here's a Trump question for you. From your perspective, you talked about peering and internet exchanges. I noticed you had a slide on that. How would you define peering?
Yeah, I think peering is a couple of people or a group of people coming together to improve something between each other. It can be networking, like what we do often, or it can be anything really when you're working with your peers closely together. But in the form of NANOG and the peering that we do typically, it's a couple of people coming together to make things better for each other.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good definition. We talk about this at NANOG a lot about, what is peering? And one of the things that we've talked about is when you get an internet provider circuit, say Caltech needs strictly internet, they go and get, we'll pretend it's a 100 gig circuit or maybe dark fiber with a provider like a CenturyLink or Zayo or whoever who's providing internet access. Yeah. A lot of universities all of us do because we have home internet connections. Yeah. But for universities, that can get expensive because there's so many students and there's so much bandwidth being used by the universities. So they can sort of pull some of that traffic off the internet and be able to bring that across on the Calren where it's going to be much cheaper.
Exactly.
So was that also one of the motivating factors for building out this separate sort of university network?
Yeah, I think that was one of the huge underlying factors was many of the university networks and as well the K-12 schools are a huge segment that we serve. And so each school would have to have a connection into a major ISP that they would have to pay for themselves, and they would get connectivity either back to their home hub or they would get what we have on our standard residential connections where it's an ISP network. And consolidating all that through CENIC and the Calren network has enabled us to kind of take that volume of traffic and optimize the best we possibly can through things like peering. We can optimize it for speed, reliability, for price, like you had mentioned. All that comes along with having this network that we've been able to build out over the entire state of California.
Oh, that's awesome. So for each of these schools, you're helping them connect to the internet for all the reasons that you talked about. Were there any type of, entry criteria if a school wanted to become sort of a member or see how they could connect into the network?
Yeah, I think that's a big one. One of the big requirements that we have is that our member institutions contribute to the organization as a whole. So they join those technical committees. They are a member of our board that kind of sets the direction of the organization so that they have a say in what we're doing and what we're building when we build out this network. That's one of the big keys is that we want active involvement from our community members. We don't want to just kind of dictate this is how it's going to be, right? We want to have that kind of engagement with them. I think the other one is kind of bringing them in to be technical leaders in their organization as well. We want them to be able to kind of not wholly support themselves, but be able to troubleshoot with us. CENIC as an organization is pretty small. I think we're either just under or have now crossed the threshold of 100 employees, serving 20 million end users. So we definitely need the people that connect into us to have that kind of level of understanding and ability to troubleshoot themselves. That one's key as well.
So that's a small number of people with a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it's a lot that everybody kind of takes on their shoulders here, but everybody kind of is really happy to do it because of the mission and the organization that we serve, because we're a nonprofit and we serve education in California. Everybody kind of gets behind that and pulls together and does what they need to get the job done.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear. So are there other networks like this that are more to support academics in other states?
Yeah, definitely. All over the country, there's research and education networks that are kind of regional. There's NYSERNet in New York. There's the Great Plains Network. And then some of the universities themselves kind of build out their own network and connect into a larger overall fabric of universities across the country.
Oh, that's cool. And then for these schools that join, are there any sort of, either training or support that CENIC offers? So I'm just sort of curious if I'm a network engineer or network analyst or something at a K through 12 school, I see the benefit of joining the organization and getting connectivity for the school that I'm supporting. Are there people who would help me get connected, but also sort of, it could help train me or provide any resources or that type of thing, some support, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. There's a ton of people across all of our network and our organization that help onboard people, both that are new to their organization or kind of as we bring more segments onto the network. We have to keep that in mind. One of the big projects that we had over the past 5 to 10 years has been bringing on the library systems in California to our network. So we've had to kind of inform them of what the network is, kind of the benefits of it, and kind of train them up of here's what CENIC runs, this Calren network. Here's the benefits that you get from connecting to it, and here's kind of the minimum requirements, and kind of bringing them along for the ride. And that requires, like you're probably aware, a bunch of administrative stuff, a bunch of technical networking stuff. All of that has to come together to make this possible. Yeah,
for sure. There's I guess the other question I had is, so you said you have some libraries and other organizations. Are there people who want to join CENIC that you've sort of politely had to turn away?
Yeah, there's been a few. It's hard to dive into specifics, but I think a lot of governmental organizations have been tough to get connected just in a regulatory way, because one of the big things is that CENIC doesn't want to be viewed as an ISP. We're not like a standard internet service provider that connects up a school. We're providing a different service that's distinct, and we're like a nonprofit charter organization separate from ISPs. But if we start acting like an ISP, then we start getting viewed as an ISP, and that comes along with a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot more regulatory, I understand, if you start becoming an ISP and selling services and that type of thing.
Yeah.
There is also, you mentioned government entities that are interested in joining, and are there different regulations or requirements for government entities, like say state-run or federal, that type of thing? Is that something that could also be part of these academic environments, or are there challenges around that too?
Yeah, there's some challenges around that as well, just because once you start getting into the federal government or the state government, they have all kinds of requirements for what they need a service provider to do. And that's kind of the realm that we want to stay out of. When we've been able to collaborate with them on specific projects, we've ended up handling them a lot more like a settlement-free peer. So we're not giving you the full internet access, but we are giving you access to the CENIC members, and we can have a collaboration in that way, similar to how we would with another network that would deliver video from the internet or something. We would collaborate that way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And with the settlement-free peering that, and a lot of this are meetings and people, and companies that are wanting to exchange traffic, but not necessarily want to pay each other like they would an ISP. So, so it sounds like you had to reach out to other, not necessarily ISPs, but maybe content providers, like, because it's school-based, maybe an Amazon or a Netflix or sort of these cloud providers. And, have you been able to sort of partner with them to say, hey, we're education, we'd like to exchange traffic with you? Is that also part of what CENIC is doing?
Yeah, that's a huge part of what CENIC is doing. One of the biggest parts of like my job specifically is I have to know those needs in advance and build out the network for them before people ask for them at the universities, right?
So you get to foretell the future.
Exactly. I get to look into my crystal ball and just decide, yeah, people are going to use Amazon in the next few years. Let's talk to them.
There's going to be a huge Netflix demand for our schools.
Yeah, they have a big show coming out. We got to figure out what's going on with them and how we can upgrade capacity with them. But yeah, that's a huge benefit that CENIC has in building out our own network and kind of maintaining an internet presence, is that we're able to collaborate with industry partners like you're saying with Amazon and Microsoft and all the folks that are doing the cloud computing to kind of optimize connectivity for our members. We can say like, oh, we have a university that's doing a project with like Amazon specifically, and they want to have direct connectivity into Amazon. And they just want to use the general internet, right? Then we can start a collaboration with them and be like, okay, how do we build this out? What do we do to support the needs of both of our users?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a lot of what the peering community does. And it's great that there's sort of this behind the scenes meetings and relationships that are built between these companies and nonprofits to be able to exchange that traffic. Yeah. Again, no one's profiting from it, but it's providing a service for both people's customers. In this case, it's your universities and your K through 12. So that's excellent. So now I get to ask you, how did you get into tech? Where did you start?
I've been interested in like technology in general my whole life, like most people that are kind of in our field, I would say. But I didn't get into it professionally until I was going to a local community college. And there was a random Cisco networking class that I saw on the list of classes that I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I kind of want to know how the internet works, how my router works at home. Let me take this class and I'll do some like technical trade kind of knowledge learning at this community college and see what happens from there. I took that class. It was super interesting. I dove right into it. I like went full speed into the class and learning about what the internet is and what networking is. And I kind of got an internship from there at CENIC. So I was able to build my skills up through the community college and through this internship at CENIC to kind of get to the level where I am today. That's really cool.
So it's funny because I personally have a liberal arts background of all things. And so I didn't go and get a computer science degree or anything like that. But you said that you took a Cisco class at a community college and then you ended up getting an internship. How did you find out about that internship?
The professor of the class actually recommended me for that internship because of what I had been doing. I'd been helping other students learn. I had been really diving into it. I'd been putting like full effort into the class and been kind of way into the class. And so he was like, yeah, they need interns at CENIC and you seem like you'd be a good fit. So I got recommended to the professor for that.
Oh, that's cool. So you're the guy who stayed after class to rebuild the router configurations for your professor, right?
Yeah, definitely. Help reconnect up all the cables, put them away, clear out the configs, all that stuff.
Excellent. Yeah, that's actually where I've heard a lot of the students who attend NANOG have talked about internships or opportunities that came out of professors and teachers for classes that they've taken through, like you said, a community college, even a certification class, something like that. So it's important because there are those people connections that can make a difference in how you get into tech or how you end up having a career in tech.
Yeah, so, and at CENIC, we've had a super strong relationship with the Cypress College. We've kind of had an intern program flow through there. We've had a bunch of interns come through our Network Operations Center, learn about networking, find out, oh, this is a great fit. I want to do this as a career. And they start and become an operations engineer for us or move around the company. Or maybe they take the Cisco class, get the internship, and realize that networking maybe isn't for them. But we have a lot of other positions for them that are like, oh, maybe you could do some engineering work over here on like more of the server side of things, or maybe you can do some more administrative work because you're more on the relationship aspect with our customers. So there's a great fit once they kind of get their foot in the door through that internship program and get that kind of base level of learning and knowledge that they can work off of.
Yeah, that's excellent. So how long have you been with CENIC?
Over 7 years now. I started in December of 2013 as an intern, and I've kind of worked my way up to the operations team and everything to get to where I am now.
Cool. Excellent. Well, it seems like you like it. So
yeah, it's great over there. The people are great. Everything's awesome.
That's wonderful. So another question is, you said that you took a Cisco class at the community college. Did you end up pursuing any certifications, technical certifications?
Yeah, I did. That class specifically was for the CCNA. It was to train you up to learn how to take and pass the CCNA class. So they give you all the kind of like base fundamental skills that the CCNA is looking for. And I went through and took that once I finished that series of classes. That certification, as well as a couple of other ones, were super useful for me, I think.
That's cool. Would you say that sort of helped get your foot into the door for that internship?
Yeah, it's those certifications for the vendors and from just networking in general are super useful in like having a badge on there that you can say, yes, I have technical knowledge in this field or for this vendor or for whatever. And that helps you definitely get your foot in the door at a bunch of different places.
Excellent. So did you end up having anybody that you met either through your time at CENIC or even early on when you were taking classes at the community college who sort of helped guide you, maybe answer questions as to, hey, what is tech? What companies are out there? How do I find a job? Anybody who helped answer those questions for you?
Yeah, there's been tons of people throughout my career that have kind of guided me and mentored me as I've gone along. At CENIC specifically early on, Stan and Raul were big proponents for me and they gave me a lot of opportunities to like learn about how the business world works and how like different companies do different things, right? And like how what jobs are out there for like in the networking field. A really big mentor for me throughout my career, especially lately when I've been involved in peering and interconnection, has been Daryl Newcomb, who's been pretty involved in the Nanog community for a very long time. He's definitely helped shape my career and has given me a tons of introductions at Nanog and has given me a tons of like institutional knowledge that I've been able to build off of and kind of launch myself forward on that. And so for that, I'm always super grateful.
That's awesome. Yeah. So tell me how did you find out about Nanog, or what was it like at your first meeting?
Yeah, I think I originally found out about it as I was learning more about networking and working at CENIC in the operations group and having to learn technical knowledge. There's a huge like resource of all the past presentations and slide decks that people have presented that can give you a good base knowledge about a lot of different things. And so I think that was kind of how I first got introduced to Nanog, was using those resources, finding those people that are making those presentations and kind of like getting connected in that way. As far as like the first meeting that I attended, I remember it feeling like super intimidating to be amongst all these people that are like way involved in the internet and all know each other really well. But at the same time, it's a super welcoming environment and you can like literally stop and talk to anybody. And I always thought that part always reflected back to me that was super cool, that it was such like a warm, welcoming place, even though it's all these people that like know so much and are so involved, that like for them to be open and warm and welcoming in that way was really cool.
Yeah, it's what I like about Nanog is, at the conference, you get to attend these technical presentations. And so you're not only learning, but you're refreshing skills. Hey, what's going on in this avenue? And you can approach the speakers, during the breaks or, after the presentations to just ask questions and find out more about what they do and what companies they work for. And there's a couple folks I know who literally will lead students around and introduce them to different people. And once you find out, oh my gosh, I just had an entire conversation with somebody who started CENIC or who, was involved in the very beginning of the internet. And it's mind blowing. But like you said, everyone is really welcoming and totally willing to talk to you. So with CENIC, and you were saying that you were doing the community college class and you had all these opportunities and mentors. So is there any volunteer work that you're interested in doing or currently involved in?
Yeah, to a degree, I've been involved back at that same community college at Cypress College where I did the Cisco class in the first place. They've been looking for industry partners to help them shape their kind of technical trade type classes, the Cisco classes, the kind of like cloud security classes, all that kind of stuff. So I've been going back with the original professor who was teaching that class and helping them shape that whole kind of department of like what skills do employers need in the workforce and their students coming in, right? So you can kind of get the students will get benefits from that because they'll learn valuable, important skills that people need, and the like businesses that are hiring those students also get people who are educated in the ways that they need to be educated, right? They're learning about like modern cloud stuff rather than old, like the stuff that I learned when I was taking the CCNA is all old and completely irrelevant now. So
Yeah.
they need to keep the skills polished. And I've been kind of volunteering to help set the direction for that.
That's awesome. So was it hard to, or was it intimidating to go back to the school and say like, hey, I want to help, jump in and on the program or to help shape the curriculum? So, was that difficult for you at all?
I don't think it was super difficult. It felt a little intimidating at first to be involved in that way. I'm like, oh, they want my input on this? Aren't I just like a student? And like, oh, wait, no, I've been working for a while and I can actually provide some good input to it. I've also always had a good line of communication with the professor from that class, Professor Izadi. And so we've always communicated back and forth, and I've like given presentations in his class kind of similar to this of like, hey, look, here's an opportunity of somewhere that you could work after you like take this class and get this base level of knowledge. And there's tons of things that you could go and do after this, right? You have so many opportunities in front of you. Here's one of them. And here's some of the cool stuff that I do that you could too.
Yeah, no, that's excellent because it's when students in particular hear about jobs in tech, it's really confusing sometimes to navigate. Talking to students, I know a lot of them think, oh, I need to go be a software engineer or get a computer science degree to get into tech. Yeah. And I don't know if you have this at CENIC, you mentioned it a little bit when you were talking about students who get internships and find different positions within CENIC. But there's administrative, there's, a network operations center, there's engineering, there's network analysts, but there's also project managers. Yeah. And there's also people who help, like you said, from a customer service level, account managers. Mm. And so there are so many different jobs in tech, and I don't think a lot of people are aware of that.
Yeah.
So do you find a lot of students in the class are asking those questions? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that's key, I think, to a lot of the kind of educational stuff that's going on for the tech jobs, right? A lot of people, like you're saying, think that there's just like software engineer and that's it, right? Yep. They don't think even like within the tech field that you could be like a network engineer, or you could do all kinds of different things in different spots within the tech stuff. And beyond that, the tech companies all have like an HR department. They all have like relationship management components to it. So it's not just like, oh, we just need technical people. They need like well-rounded people for every like aspect of that kind of product that they're building.
Yeah, agree wholeheartedly. Yeah. So the other question I want to ask is at NANOG, we have the technical presentations and they're sort of can be intimidating. And we as the program committee are always looking for presenters from different companies or different backgrounds and that type of thing. And I was wondering if you ever considered giving a technical talk at NANOG.
Yeah, I have before. I've considered it. And then I gave a lightning talk a few years ago. That I remember the overall feeling with that was cool to get it organized. And then once I realized I had to make a presentation to this group of people that are super technically knowledgeable, and like, it just became super intimidating. I was like, wait, I actually have to do this now. What am I going to do? But it was just a lightning talk. It was really quick. Everything about it was really quick. There's a reason why they call it lightning talks, I've learned. Even like building up the slides, we were doing that up to like 5 minutes before we went on stage. We were like, oh, hold on, wait, let's tweak this a little bit. Let's make these changes. Oh, okay, now I'm going up. Okay, let's do it. Hi guys. It was really cool to like dive in and do that and kind of be a part of NANOG in a way that I wasn't before. And even though it felt intimidating at the beginning, once I was up there and after I had done it, I realized that, oh yeah, that wasn't so bad. That was pretty easy, actually. I had a topic and I talked about it, and then people followed up afterwards and were like, that was pretty cool. Can we talk more about that? And I was able to like have those kind of like follow-up conversations and like integration into the community in a way that I hadn't before. So it was a really positive experience overall when I did that.
Good. Positive, but very intimidating.
Yeah, very intimidating initially, especially being on stage in front of like so many people like that I know like actually understand what I'm talking about, and I have to be correct.
Yep. Or they'll call you out in the question and answer session.
Exactly, right there. They'll walk up and be like, actually.
I helped invent IP6. Let me call you that question about this.
Yeah.
No, that's great. So the other question we get from students is, do you find that there's a big difference between, say, going to a community college, which is more affordable in a lot of cases, but also sort of a good place to take a few classes and understand what they want to get into and make those initial connections. So have you found while working at CENIC, either with interns, or maybe you were involved in interviewing employees, or even the volunteer work you're doing at the community college, have you found that there's a big difference when between, say, a community college degree, or even just taking a few classes, or somebody who has a full bachelor's degree?
Yeah, I was involved with interviewing, and I was involved in kind of like the bigger overall team with both the network operations group and our kind of senior engineering group. So I've seen a lot of people come through with a lot of different backgrounds, and I can like kind of contribute my experience to that as well. I know for me, when I was going to that community college, I was there because I didn't have the grades to make it into a full university. So I was kind of exploring things there, seeing what I liked to do, what was actually interesting to me. And I think kind of that was a super valuable part of that community college experience was the classes are way cheaper. So you can just dive in and be like, oh yeah, the Cisco class seems interesting. Let's see what we get from this. And I end up making a whole career out of it, right? So there's all those opportunities in front of you at the community college to be able to kind of like explore your interests and see what is available to you. But with regards to like the differences between like a community college degree and like a 4-year actual bachelor's degree, I think there's some value that comes from the bachelor's degree, but it's not what defines the person, right? The person has their like skill sets that they have and their personality type and how they mesh well with others and what they can contribute to the organization kind of outside the degree itself. I think there's a lot of classes at a community college and at the universities that can prepare you for the business world and for operating in that way in general. But I've seen really smart people with no degrees, and I've seen people that have degrees that you would expect to be more experienced and are not. And so you have the full range. The piece of paper itself is not the most important part. The most important part, I would say, is figuring out what you want to do and like the networking that you do to get to that, right? The interpersonal relationships that you have with people are like the most important part.
Yeah, I like to make the joke that there's sort of computer networking or network engineering, and then there's the people networking aspect of it. So because as you said, in tech, it takes a broader skill set. It's not just, like you said, a degree or a certification or even your technical background. Yeah. In my first job, I had a lot of hands-on trained at my company initially, that type of thing. But a lot of people look for soft skills, people skills. Do you work well in a team? Are you willing to ask questions if you don't understand something? Reach out across teams, even on different projects and that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's great that you mentioned that. Yeah,
that's been something that I've been a huge advocate for in that kind of like volunteer work that I've been doing with the community colleges, is kind of setting that direction as well to like help develop people's soft skills and help develop those kind of like business relational skills. Because those, honestly, from what I've experienced so far, are the most important part, right? You can be the most technical person in the world, but if you can't like have a conversation with somebody, you're not going to be able to like get peering or get like a career started and that kind of thing. So you have to have those soft skills as a base level to work off of. And then you can like add the technical knowledge on top of that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny you say, and you and I know a lot of people through the Nanog community, and you're 100% correct. We know brilliant people who never took a college level class.
Yeah.
And so the technical certifications can help. Taking a few classes and starting to people network can also get your foot in the door. Yeah. And having a degree can sometimes come in later in your career, I find, but not necessarily at the beginning.
Yeah, that's something I've definitely ran into as I've gone further in my career, is once you try to like shift into more managerial positions or stuff like that, that becomes more of an expectation.
Yeah, it is interesting. I've had a few friends who've been in tech for a long time. And as you said, they'll go through a managerial track or maybe a team lead track. And that's when their managers will circle back with them saying, well, we're looking, for somebody with a degree. Yeah. But what is interesting about that is later on in your career, there's some benefits there because you have a better sense of what you want to do. Yeah. And you can also, from your employer, sometimes take advantage of college credit classes, tuition reimbursement, that type of thing. Yeah. So it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I've definitely kind of ran into that and experienced that. And that was one of the things that in the past few years I had started to do as well, was go back and finish out my degrees and kind of build that out to kind of get myself to be more well-rounded and kind of check those boxes for people and kind of develop my skills as well, because there's things that they can teach you in the classroom that you're not going to experience or have experience to in the real world unless you've gone through there and been like, oh yeah, we'll prep you for this, or this is how you handle this kind of situation. So that's been super interesting and super useful.
Yeah, 100%. The other question I have is, so do you feel in your job experience or in working with students and interns, do you think that the very first job you get out of college is the thing you're stuck doing your entire life?
Yeah, definitely not. It helps you launch your career, but you're not stuck doing it. There's a lot of mobility, especially in the industries that we're involved in. There's so many different places doing so many different things in so many different ways with a base level of skills that you can apply to all of those, that you can find whatever's most interesting and most comfortable for you to do is available out there. You just have to look for it.
Yep. Exactly. The other thing I find is when you folks were posting positions for an open rec or, looking for people to fill a particular job. So you write up that job requirement. And that's what we find on the job sites like Indeed or on the company website. Hey, we're looking for this type of engineer or this type of internship opportunity. Do you feel that the folks who are applying to those jobs need to have every single skill listed in that job requirement?
Yeah, I've gone through that myself as well, where you're like, this seems like a lot to have for there. Well, I'll apply anyway and see what happens. A lot of the times they're looking for someone who has a lot of those skills or like a general knowledge of those skills, not necessarily like the industry expert on this one topic, right? And I think people can kind of get those conflated in their head of like, there's all these job requirements. I need to meet every one of those before I even try to go in this direction. It's like, give it a shot and see if you can do it.
Yes, never hurts to apply.
Yeah, honestly, that's a great motto to have.
Yeah, that's cool. So the other question I have for you, is there any advice that you would give someone who's interested in getting into tech or exploring jobs in tech, or maybe a student who's going to be graduating soon? Any good advice?
Yeah, I think like hands-on experience and like knowledge in that way is the most important thing when you're early on in your career. Being able to say that like, yeah, I have experience with configuring something in AWS or like hands-on doing things like that, and being able to go to a potential employer and being like, yeah, I would like to be a network engineer at CENIC, right? And I understand I've done the CCNA class and I've done through that, I've like learned how routers work. I have the certification now that like says I have some industry knowledge. That I think is the most important thing above anything else, being able to have that like technical skill set and that technical experience to build off of, rather than like that full degree path or what the other options that are kind of available to you. I think that knowledge and experience directly is kind of the most important part, and to dive into that is important.
Yeah, thank you. That's great advice.
Yeah, I know some of the like candidates that I've worked with, the most interesting ones that I've wanted to hire right away are the ones that have like built a home lab or have like just do that as like for like something that they were interested in. They just dove into it and was like, I wonder how AWS works, or I wonder how I can log into a router on like my home network or something, right? And they've done that and kind of been curious and explored that themselves. Those have been some of the people that I've been like, yeah, let's talk more to this person.
Yeah, it's the curiosity and the wanting to learn more, and how does that work? And I want to understand the internet, and it's the interest that you really look for. Yeah, that interest and the not being afraid to ask questions and to dive into things and kind of go just fully dive into it and be like, yeah, this is what I'm interested in. This is what I'm doing now. I'm going to actually like go forward and put all my energy into that. Yes, 100%. I had a great manager who used to say, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Mm-hmm. And it's, but you need, in order to fully understand something, you really do need to ask those questions. And you really do need to, in some ways, sort of build something or tinker with it to understand how it works, and then completely screw it up. Yeah. Break it badly. Yeah. Exactly. Because that's where you learn. And, every person I've met or talked to at NANOG or at the industry conferences always have a story about a mistake they made on the job. Yeah. So we all have our stories. Yeah. Some of them we can tell, some of them not so much, but we all have them. Oh, yes. And some of us are not allowed to speak in public about where we work because we have to be so careful. Yes. Luckily, I have some affordances, so I can be a proponent of Scenic, but there's a lot of people that are stuck like that. Yeah. It's very true. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk about Scenic and letting us know about these different sort of academic networks that exist in different states, and particularly in California, and for giving us a little bit of background as to how you got into tech and some great advice for future careers. So we will leave some time here for Q&A in case anybody has specific questions for myself or Nick. Yeah, so thanks again for your time. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been great to be able to give this presentation here and then to talk to people afterwards. That'll be fun. Definitely. Thanks. Hello. Thank you, everyone, for attending the webinar. We are now taking any questions that folks have. We hope you enjoyed the presentation. A few questions we did get. The first one was, Nick, is there anything that you're aware of or anything that maybe Scenic is doing for underserved regions in North America today? Yeah, this is a big one for Scenic. It's one of our major kind of goals that we're pushing for as an organization. And one of the people that I've viewed kind of as a mentor at Scenic is pushing this for us, Sherilyn Evans. She's kind of directing Scenic's mission in this aspect. There's a lot of underserved and underprivileged communities throughout California that Scenic tries to, with kind of like our collective power of all of the educational institutions in the state, kind of serve with better connectivity and better access to online resources. So that's a huge goal for us and something we've been pushing for as an organization for like a long time. A lot of it has been through like the Central Valley, where there's rough connectivity in some places. There's been some with like indigenous tribes that we've done outreach for, wildfire support. So there's a lot of that kind of outreach that we do. That's amazing. And I'm sure it's really appreciated by those regions. Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely it is. Yeah, that's huge. Good partnership too, especially among, education and the colleges and universities and the nonprofit aspect of it. So yeah, it's kind of like a natural fit for all the people that are working there, the mindset that everybody has, and the kind of nonprofit and research and education focus that we have. Yeah. Excellent. Another question that came through is, in your role working with Scenic and being a network engineer, with your background, what do you see? Do you see any trends or things that are changing in our field, sort of coming down the pipeline in the future? Yeah, I think looking backwards a little bit first, COVID changed things a lot, right? It forced us to have to think about like online learning, supporting kind of the distance model for education. And now we're kind of having to have a mix of that. So I think being able to be adaptable is the number one key thing for our networks and like for kind of what I plan for on a network basis, not being so like set in stone of like, yeah, this is how we do things. This is how
everything functions on a day-to-day way. Being adaptable and being flexible and like building things out to be supported in whatever way it needs to be for like our users is key. But I think additionally, it's going to be like more cloud stuff, more online learning, kind of a shift towards that, a shift towards having resources available like through cloud services and through ways that can be accessed that aren't like on campus. So there'll still be a lot of on-campus learning, I think, but there's going to be a shift to kind of continue this online learning format that we're going to have to support.
Yeah, everyone's talking about the hybrid model now and how that's, impacting businesses, but also especially education in the last, year and a half, 2 years. So
yeah, I don't think that's going away anytime soon.
Yeah, nope. It's also opened up a lot of opportunities for students.
It has, yeah. Students that wouldn't be able to attend a university because of their distance can now access those resources and take those classes remotely. That's been a huge benefit for a lot of students that I've talked to. Yeah,
which lends itself to a different network build out and how you're going to be able to support that. So there's definitely a challenge there as well.
Yeah, for sure there is.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. Thank you. And also to everyone attending, please feel free to continue putting questions in the chat if there's a particular question that you have for Nick. Another question we got was, if you were starting over again, what would you do differently in your career?
Yeah, I think diving into my interests sooner. So figuring out like what I want to, what I am interested in and what I want to kind of pursue as a career path, making that a priority over like trying to take like general ed classes and that kind of thing, figuring out what's interesting and what's kind of, what's interesting for me to take. That's where things launched off for me, because then I was able to dive into like the networking through that certification class and kind of build things up through there. So I think finding that and doing that kind of work would be something that I'd focus more on rather than like the traditional educational model.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, because a lot of colleges and universities say you need this certification if you want to take these classes. Mm-hmm. If you have an associate's degree, take these classes. Same with the bachelor's degree. But it's important to also try the random class that piques your interest to sort of see if that's something that catches on.
Yeah. And with the kind of volunteer work that I was doing with Cypress College, that's been one of the key focuses that we've had, has been kind of like badging and portfolios with them so that like they can build out a curriculum for like tech stuff specifically that's kind of independent from the regular degree process. So you can just say that like a student has a certification from Cypress College for this technology or for this learning pathway that is kind of removed from the rest of the degree process. And that's been super useful to have students find like, oh, look, here's a pathway that I could take that could lead to a career that isn't that kind of standard educational model.
Yeah, that's huge. So the prerequisites are not always fun. They're necessary to get the degree, but it's always good to branch out of that. Yeah.
And I think they help to make you more well-rounded when you take those classes, but there's definitely not one specific pathway that you have to take to be successful or to like launch a career.
Yeah. That's great advice. Thanks. Yeah, there was a comment in the Q&A chat. Also, don't be afraid to say, I don't know, if you really don't know something. And that's not only like on the job or in your career or internship or something, but I also think that sort of pertains to when you're taking classes in school in some ways.
Yeah, I can't tell enough how much that phrase, I don't know, has helped me a lot in my career and my educational development. Just being able to say that and say, I don't know, but I'd like to dive in and learn more about that. Or like, I'd like to, like, can you help me understand that? Has been like one of the key things that I've asked over my career. I think that's helped me more than anything else.
Yeah, definitely. Keep the curiosity and inquisitive nature can only help.
Yeah, definitely. And that kind of, I don't know what the phrase for it would be, but kind of not holding yourself up so high as like, I have to know everything. Just like being able to step down and be like, you know what? I don't know. Well, I'll admit that. I don't know. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that pertains to anyone, like even in a first job, when you have a manager and then a director, or if you're working in a corporate environment, there's the vice president or something along those lines. And even they need to stop and say, you can't know everything. You need to be able to ask questions and reach out to people who do know those things and continue learning throughout.
Yeah, exactly.
So That's huge. Cool. And then one of our other questions was through NANOG and also through the outreach program in particular, we really are focused on diversifying in tech. And it's not only background, race, gender diversity, it's also knowledge and thought diversity. So if everyone on a team has the same background, same race from the same country and everything else, you're not going to get that diversity of perspective. So diversity is huge at NANOG. It's something that we really do push. And I'm sort of curious if you have had initiatives with CENIC or any experience when it comes to how you're finding diversity in tech in general, or any thoughts you might have on that.
Yeah, we're really lucky at Scenic to have a really diverse group of employees that are working in like engineering and across the company. They bring a lot of different perspectives together. And I think that's been one of the major successes of Scenic, and what's led to a lot of success, like in what Scenic has been able to do, is that there's so many different people from different like geographical regions, different backgrounds of how they've been raised and like what they've been through in life. And to have that shared experience come together has produced different ways of thinking that a lot of us wouldn't have thought up on our own. Like people can introduce to me the ways that I haven't thought of before. I can introduce ways to them that maybe they haven't thought of before. And just having that kind of group mentality and that shared experience with each other has made us really successful as an organization, I think. But with terms of like increasing diversity and kind of bringing that to the fold across kind of Scenic and the places that I'm involved in, I think that's a key opportunity for like the volunteer work that I was doing with Cypress College, because they're starting bringing in people to this program as early as like high school and middle school. So they're identifying kids from different backgrounds that you wouldn't normally expect to have like an interesting tech, and giving them exposure to different kinds of technology, so that pretty early on in their education, throughout like even just regular like STEM or STEAM programs, introducing them early on to the kids and kind of piquing their interest early, and then enabling that throughout their educational pathway. So like identifying it, latching onto that and being like, oh yeah, we can actually boost you up. And there's interest at this community college for more students in networking or in cybersecurity or in any type of technology field. And I think kind of latching onto that early is the key part of that, of introducing it, and then also like developing that up for the kids. That's been one of the kind of main focuses of that group within Cypress College. It's been like setting this direction of those programs.
That's awesome. And that's definitely needed throughout tech. Like you said, it's not only, network engineering where we are, but it's cybersecurity, as well as all the different, jobs or positions that are available in tech. And it's great to get kids excited about it early. Yeah. So like you said, it's perfect. The STEM programs, junior high, high school, continuing through college and afterwards, that's huge. It's great to hear that you're so actively involved in that. That's really cool.
And I'd like to do that on like a larger level. It's not just like one university that kind of spreads out to more of them. I'm not sure what that would look like, but that would be super interesting to kind of help develop that in more regions and more places. Yeah,
that's cool. Well, rumor has it NANOG has some volunteer positions open, particularly with outreach to education. So you may, end up doing a little bit more there.
I've heard that there's some openings there, actually. So I'll have to look into that.
Sounds great. We're looking forward to it. Excellent. Well, Nick, thank you so much for your time. Was there any other comments or anything that you'd like to say to prospective students?
Yeah, I just would like to say, I guess, thank you and thank NANOG for the opportunity to come and present here. It's been really cool to be able to talk about this and kind of share the message of that things are possible and there's great opportunities out there for college students. I think that's the key, is that like the key takeaway that I'd like to give college students that are kind of maybe consuming this is that there's not one dedicated pathway that you need to take to be successful or to launch your career in technology. You can kind of forge your own path and kind of lean on mentors and people that are there to support you to be successful in that.
Yeah, that's excellent. And we really appreciate your time. You have such a great background, and we loved hearing about Scenic and your experience. So thanks for joining us today. And thanks everyone for attending. If you do have questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to NANOG. And thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care.